Welcome to Derm Power, where policy meets practice, hosted by the California Dermatology Advocacy Network. In each episode, we examine the legislative and regulatory forces shaping dermatologic care in California and what they mean for physicians and patients. Because protecting patient care means protecting the profession. Today's host is Dr. Haas, CDAN President.
Hello, I'm Dr. Haas, recording for Derm Power, the podcast of the California Dermatology Advocacy Network. This is another segment of our scary story time. This episode involves an article that we found from New York that I think has a lot of overlap in what we are trying to accomplish here in California. We feature these so that you don't have to cull the literature for things that you might not come across but are truly important to us in California. So this comes from New York, and this is the New York Med Spa Investigation Scary Story. So sit back, relax, and I'm going to read your scary story. From June to September of 2024, the New York City Council's Office of Investigations Division, they call it the OID, in collaboration with multiple other New York state agencies, conducted a series of inspections of medical spas, and they released a report they called Moving the Needle. What they found was actually pretty horrifying. Of the 15 medical spas they inspected, they found widespread violations of New York state laws, licensure requirements, and health and safety code at every single location. So before we dive into what they found, let's take a step back and clarify some terms. So in New York, medical spas, or med spas, are defined as businesses that offer aesthetic beauty services and treatments. They generally offer services that we might find at a regular day spa, things like non-medical facials, waxing, manicures, massages, what we might call a day spa. But these days, many of those places also advertise cosmetic medical procedures, and those would include neurotoxin injections like Botox, dermal fillers, PRP, body contouring, and IV therapies. Now, obviously, it used to be the case that one had to go to a dermatologist or a plastic surgeon's office to receive these cosmetic medical procedures. But over the past several years, these businesses have blurred the distinction between a day spa and a doctor's office. In New York, a day spa and a doctor's office require different types of licenses. To perform cosmetology, waxing, and manicure services, the business needs an Appearance Enhancement Business License, or an AEB, for Appearance Enhancement Business. But obviously, medical procedures are different. Procedures like lasers and Botox and fillers and IV treatments and PRP, PDO threads, all of these can only be performed by a licensed medical professional and only at medical businesses that hold a medical facility license. So to perform cosmetic medical procedures, you need to be a physician or an advanced practice RN. And in most cases, you need a physician to oversee anyone doing these procedures who isn't a physician. In New York, only a physician or a nurse practitioner can own a medical practice. So the point is that you simply cannot perform cosmetic medical procedures without having the proper personnel with the proper training and licensure and supervision. New York is very specific about this. Now, here is what the agencies did. First, they became aware of these businesses through their social media posts. These businesses were claiming to provide cosmetic medical services without being approved and licensed by the state of New York to do so. For example, they found a post on Instagram that showed a cosmetologist performing injections of Botox and fillers into patients. Remember, cosmetologists cannot perform procedures that penetrate the skin. Then these agencies determined which, if any, license the businesses had, and they factored in consumer reviews and complaints and prior disciplinary actions. Ultimately, they narrow their efforts to the 15 businesses that they felt posed the greatest danger to the public at large. So this is what they found. All 15 businesses were offering medical procedures without the required licensure. Almost all businesses failed to display their licenses or an appropriate license. All but 2 businesses did not keep safety records which are required by law. Over half of the businesses had serious sanitation and hygiene issues. 2/3 of those medical spas reviewed had no medical oversight. 4 of the businesses had an unlicensed or expired practitioner performing services. Nearly half of the businesses lacked liability insurance. So that means if the business harmed a customer and lost a subsequent legal case, that customer might recover absolutely nothing for their injuries. One spa in Staten Island placed used needles into an overflow open container. Think about this. We go to enormous lengths in our clinics to dispose of needles in containers that prevent someone from getting a needle stick injury. Infections like hepatitis B and C and HIV can be transmitted via infected needles, so having an overflowing open container is a huge issue. One med spa in Queens stored medications in a kitchen refrigerator next to the staff lunches. Yummy. Multiple medical spas stored medications that were either expired or foreign sourced. Now, in the US, you must get your medications from registered distributors or from compounding pharmacies. In one business, prescription medications were placed in clear bottles with handwritten labels. 2/3 of the businesses had chemical and fire safety violations. At one location in Staten Island, the business offered nail services, but the ventilation system was broken and the fumes permeated throughout the salon. Even the investigators suffered respiratory problems after inspecting the place. In addition, some businesses may have engaged in violation of wage laws. Some force their employees to work 7 days per week with no paid time off. So these respective state and local agencies pursued disciplinary actions against these businesses, and here is what's going on thus far. As of December 2025, 4 of the 15 cases had been adjudicated. All 4 businesses lost their AEB license, and the individual licensees at these med spas lost their cosmetology licenses. This action closed the businesses and prevented the individual cosmetologists from legally working in this field going forward. Interestingly, the New York agencies and investigators did not stop there. They made several other recommendations for how to keep patients safe from these illegal and illicit businesses. First, despite New York state law being very clear on the matter, the agencies acknowledged customers who visit appearance enhancement business, or AEBs, may not realize that these businesses are legally prohibited from providing cosmetic medical procedures. The agencies encourage lawmakers to pass laws that require all AEBs to display a standard notice that they are not licensed to perform such services, and that this signage includes examples of the services which they cannot provide, such as Botox fillers, PRPs, lasers, and IV therapies. They also encourage better enforcement by having the appropriate state agencies conduct regular inspections of med spas in the same manner as they had conducted with this investigation. Med spa regulation is complex. The problem is each agency covers a different aspect of the business. State and local agencies really need to work together to coordinate and share information so that they can review the full breadth of services that these businesses offer, as well as how they're operating and what licenses they carry. Finally, the agencies and investigators recommended a public-facing education campaign to equip consumers with the tools to recognize unlicensed and unsafe facilities, as well as to understand their rights when visiting businesses that offer cosmetic procedures. So, one final thought about this story. Why did anyone even patronize these businesses instead of going to see a dermatologist or a plastic surgeon? There are probably a lot of answers to that question, but one answer that comes to mind is money. These businesses stand to earn a lot of money by offering these illegal services, probably at a discounted cost to the consumer. Likewise, there's money to be saved by the consumer who prefers to focus on cost rather than safety or end result or training. Clearly, much more needs to be done about this problem, and the recommendations provided by the New York State investigators need to be in front of all states, including ours, in front of every legislature and administration in our country to help keep our patients safe. Thank you for tuning in to this scary story.
Derm Power is a production of the California Dermatology Advocacy Network. CDAN is a registered 501c6 organization representing the hardworking board-certified dermatologists in California. Thank you all for your amazing work. Please make sure to follow CDAN on all our social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, so that you never miss an episode of Derm Power. If today's episode sharpened your understanding of how policy impacts practice, then we invite you to join CDAN, especially if you are a board-certified or retired dermatologist. Learn more about our work at www.cadermadvocacy.org. Advocacy isn't optional, and CDAN is dedicated to protecting our patients and dermatologist-led care in California. See you next time.